The silent partner's final. I was the only person at my own graduation who didn't have a cheering section. While the stadium roared for every other name, mine was met with the polite, hollow patter of strangers. I didn't mind. By 22, I'd realized that being invisible wasn't a curse. It was a superpower. If no one is watching you, no one can tell you when to stop. Last night, at my mother's mahogany dining table, the invisibility cloak finally caught fire. The Golden Boy and the Ghost. My name is Maya. For 26 years, I played the role of the other one. In our house, my older brother, Leo, was the sun, and my parents were the planets locked in his gravitational pull. I remember my 10th birthday vividly, not because of a party, but because of the silence. My mother, Sarah, had forgotten to buy a cake because Leo had a junior varsity soccer tryout that ran late. I spent that evening doing my math homework by the light of a single desk lamp, while the rest of the house hummed with the excitement of his potential. "You're a rock, Maya," my mom would say, patting my hand without looking away from her phone. "You're low maintenance. You'll always be fine." Fine was the word they used to justify neglecting me. Leo was high-strung and brilliant, requiring private tutors, elite sports camps, and 3 separate starter investments for business ideas that evaporated like mist. I went to the state university on a Pell Grant and worked 3 jobs to cover the rent for a studio apartment that smelled like damp cardboard and ambition. The basement unicorn. While Leo was busy, networking, at expensive bars on my mother's dime, I was building a ghost. It started in that damp studio. I noticed that while everyone was obsessed with productivity hacks, the people actually doing the work, the nurses, the teachers, the independent contractors, were burning out because their schedules were managed by algorithms that didn't understand human limits. I coded an interface called Pulse. It wasn't flashy. It didn't have social media integration. It just did one thing: it protected the user's time. It learned your stress markers and blocked out recovery windows that couldn't be overridden. I lived on protein bars and spite. For 3 years, my family thought I was a data entry clerk. When I'd visit for the holidays, they'd ask if I was still doing that computer stuff before pivoting back to Leo's latest disaster, a disruptive artisanal water brand that had just cost my parents their retirement savings. The Christmas contract. This year, the atmosphere at dinner was heavy. The air smelled of rosemary turkey and desperation. Leo sat across from me, his expensive watch, a gift from Mom for a job well done at a company he'd already quit, glinting under the chandelier. "So, Maya," Leo said, swirling his wine with a smirk, "Mom says you're still at that little tech firm. How's the cubicle life? Are you still making enough to afford those interesting outfits?" My mother sighed, reaching over to squeeze Leo's hand. "Don't tease her, Leo. Maya's steady. We can't all be visionaries like you. It's a shame about the water business, honey, but your next idea, that crypto housing thing, it sounds revolutionary." I took a slow sip of water. I thought about the wire transfer that had hit my account 48 hours ago. I thought about the 3 years of being the rock they leaned on only when they needed someone to ignore. "Actually," I said, my voice cutting through the room like a cold blade, "I'm not at that firm anymore. I sold my interest in Pulse." Leo let out a sharp, mocking bark of a laugh. "The time management app? Who'd buy that? Some local school district for 50 grand. I looked at my mother. Her eyes were vacant, already bored by my success. I looked at my father, who was staring at his plate, likely wondering how much more he'd have to loan Leo this month. "A global healthcare conglomerate bought it," I said. "For how much?" Leo asked, leaning back, his smirk widening. "Enough for a new used car." I set my glass down. The sound echoed in the sudden silence of the room. $120 million, I said. "Cash up front. The news hits the Wall Street Journal tomorrow morning." The sound of a falling star. The silence that followed wasn't just quiet, it was a vacuum. It sucked the oxygen right out of the room. My mother's wine glass didn't break, but she set it down so hard the liquid slopped over the tablecloth, staining the white linen like a fresh wound. Leo's smirk didn't just fade, it disintegrated. He looked like he'd been slapped by a ghost. 100 and… Maya, you're joking, my mother whispered, her face turning a shade of gray I'd never seen before. You have that kind of money. Why didn't you tell us? We've been struggling with with the household expenses. I did tell you, I replied calmly. I told you when I got my first 1,000 users. You asked me to help Leo move his furniture. I told you when I got my first venture capital meeting. You told me you were too busy helping Leo draft a legal defense for his trademark infringement suit. I stood up. I didn't feel the rush of heat I expected. I just felt a profound, icy clarity. For 26 years, I was the girl who was fine, I said, looking at the woman who had spent my childhood looking past me. And you were right. I am fine. I'm better than fine. But the thing about being the invisible daughter is that when I finally walk out of the room, you don't even realize what you've lost until the door is already locked. The aftermath. I didn't stay for dessert. I drove back to my hotel, a sweet-eyed booked with a view of the skyline, paid for with a card that didn't have a limit. The fallout was immediate. My phone exploded with texts. Not congratulations, but how could you hide this? And Leo is family. He needs a lead investor for his new project. My mother even called to ask if I'd consider buying back their mortgage. They didn't want me. They wanted the rock to turn into a diamond they could sell. I changed my number that night. I realized that the $120 million wasn't the prize. The prize was the silence. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the background noise in someone else's story. I was the author of my own. People ask me if I regret dropping the bomb at Christmas. They say it was cruel to do it in front of the family. But they don't understand. That dinner wasn't an ending. It was a final invoice. For every ignored birthday, every skipped graduation, and every time I was told I'd be fine while they poured their love into a sinkhole, the bill was finally due. And for the first time in her life, my mother realized she couldn't afford me. Would you like me to expand on the aftermath section with more specific details about the legal or social fallout Maya faced from her family?